Imagine, for a moment, the quiet hum of a summer evening in a forgotten field, somewhere deep in the heartland of America, stars beginning to prick through the fading cobalt sky. You're sitting there, the scent of dry earth and sage on the air, and a thought drifts in, unbidden, like a wisp of smoke from a distant fire. What if this isn't our first time watching these stars? What if, before the concrete and the steel, before the very notion of history as we know it, there were others? Minds that gazed at these same celestial bodies, hands that shaped stones into impossible forms, hearts that loved and feared under a sun just like ours. A whispered possibility, almost too profound to speak aloud. It's not about grand, flashing revelations, but the subtle tremor beneath the surface of what we believe to be true. A melancholic echo from deep time, suggesting we might be inheritors, not pioneers. A quiet question that lingers in the cool night air. What did they know, and why did they disappear? Imagine, then, that gentle transition from dusk to full star-dusted night. The crickets have begun their nightly chorus, a timeless symphony against the vast canvas overhead. The air cools, carrying with it the ghost of a breeze that rustles through dry stalks, whispering secrets too old for human ears. You're still there, in that forgotten field, the earth solid beneath you, yet feeling somehow fluid, brimming with untold narratives. And the question lingers, not a shout, but a soft, insistent hum beneath the surface of your thoughts. Always. What if this quiet, unassuming patch of America, this land of rolling plains, ancient mountains, and winding rivers, has cradled civilizations we can no longer trace, built by hands whose very existence has slipped from the ledger of accepted history? It's a thought that stirs a strange, profound sense of longing, an ache in the heart that feels less like intellectual curiosity and more like a dim, ancestral memory trying to surface. We gaze at the night sky, charting constellations our ancestors named, yet we rarely consider the possibility that those names might be echoes, not origins. We see the world through the lens of our immediate past, a history meticulously carved in stone and parchment, yet the land itself often tells a different story, a saga told in whispers of eroding earth, forgotten mounds, and structures that defy convenient explanation. This longing, this almost homesick yearning for a knowledge we never possessed, isn't born of a desire for dramatic alien encounters or fantastical empires. No, it's far more subtle, far more poignant. It's the quiet suspicion that humanity's journey isn't a straight, upward climb from primordial ooze to Silicon Valley, but rather a meandering path, a series of grand ascents and precipitous falls, each crest adorned with brilliant, ephemeral flowers of civilization. We speak of prehistory with a kind of comfortable dismissal, as if everything before the advent of written records was merely a prelude, an unsophisticated infancy. But what if prehistory is merely your prehistory? What if, beneath the carefully labeled strata of archaeological digs, lie the dust and dreams of countless other histories, each vibrant and complex in its own right, each ultimately succumbing to forces greater than its collective will? Consider the sheer, humbling vastness of time. Our recorded history, a mere few millennia, is a blink in the eye of geological epochs. Continents drift, mountains rise and fall, ice ages sculpt and reshape the very face of the planet with a patient, indifferent artistry. Nah. In this cosmic slow dance, how many times could the human spirit have awakened, formed communities, built wonders, and then faded, leaving behind nothing but a riddle for a future, nascent humanity to ponder? The very idea induces a kind of melancholic wonder. To think of entire libraries lost, entire philosophies unearthed, entire technologies returned to dust, all because the earth shifted, or the climate turned, or memory simply failed. It's a somber meditation on transience, not just of individual lives, but of entire collective endeavors. We feel it, don't we? That persistent quiet pull towards the unexplained. A deep-seated curiosity that isn't satisfied by the neat narratives of conventional history. It manifests in the way we linger over the enigmatic precision of an ancient earthen mound, or the inexplicable alignment of long-forgotten stone circles. It's in the way a seemingly random artifact, unearthed from layers of undisturbed soil, can evoke a sudden visceral connection to a craftsman who lived 100 centuries ago, a fleeting sense of shared humanity across an impossible chasm of time. This isn't about proving some outlandish theory. It's about acknowledging the deep, intuitive sense that our perception of the past might be woefully incomplete, a fragmentary tapestry missing most of its threads. The melancholy stems from the profound loneliness of this possibility. If entire civilizations have blossomed and faded, leaving barely a trace, then what does that say about our own carefully constructed world? Are we, too, merely a transient chapter in a cosmic story infinitely older and more complex than we dare to imagine? It's a thought that humbles us, reduces our perceived importance, yet simultaneously imbues our present moment with a fragile, precious significance. If others have walked this path, if they have built and loved and dreamed under these same stars, then their echoes, however faint, must still resonate within the very fabric of our existence. Perhaps this is why we build monuments, why we carve our names into trees and etch our stories onto digital clouds. A subconscious defiance against the inevitable erasure that swallowed those who came before. But the earth, in its quiet, enduring wisdom, holds more secrets than our fleeting records ever could. Beneath the fertile topsoil of a Midwestern farm, or buried deep within the sediments of an ancient lakebed, or even cloaked by the dense foliage of an Appalachian forest, there might be remnants. Not grand cities, perhaps, but telltale signs, tools unlike any we recognize, subtly altered landscapes, or even just the faint, almost imperceptible chemical signatures of forgotten habitations. This sense of longing, this quiet contemplation, whispers to us, not of a linear progression, but of a grand cyclical dance. Civilizations rising, reaching pinnacles of knowledge and artistry, then declining, their sophisticated understanding crumbling back into elemental chaos. The sands of time become more than just a metaphor. They are the physical embodiment of erasure, patiently burying all evidence, leaving only tantalizing, ambiguous clues for future generations to stumble upon. This idea suggests that humanity, in its essence, is not a fledgling species, but an old soul, repeatedly forgetting its past lives, only to rediscover fragments of its own forgotten wisdom, like a recurring dream of a place it once knew intimately. It's a bittersweet contemplation, the beauty of creation, the tragedy of loss, all woven into an eternal loop. And as you sit there, the universe unfolding its silent grandeur above you, the thought settles gently into your mind. We are not just standing on the shoulders of giants. We might be standing on the dust of countless forgotten worlds, each contributing its silent, profound legacy to the quiet hum of existence. The curiosity isn't just about what they knew, but about what we have forgotten, and what patterns of rise and fall we might be destined to repeat, all beneath the indifferent gaze of these ancient, ever-watching stars. The questions are not meant to be answered with certainty, but to be felt, to be pondered, to allow that quiet, melancholic whisper from deep time to resonate within us. The quiet hum of the summer evening in that forgotten field lingers, a low, resonant frequency against the vast, silent backdrop of the universe. The stars, now a glittering tapestry, seem to press down, not with weight, but with an immense, knowing gaze. It's a gaze that holds more stories than our textbooks ever could, a patient witness to the rise and fall of countless moments, an immeasurable stretch of time that dwarfs our neat little timelines. We tell ourselves a story, a comforting narrative of progress, of humanity's singular ascent from primitive beginnings to our modern complexities. But what if that story, so carefully constructed, is merely a thin veil drawn over something far vaster, far more enigmatic. What if the earth beneath our feet, particularly here in the ancient scarred landscapes of the American heartland, whispers secrets that gently, melancholically unravel our certainties? Our journey into these shadows doesn't begin with grand declarations or dramatic pronouncements. Instead, it starts with a soft sigh, a thoughtful pause over the quiet anomalies, the subtle tremors that ripple through the bedrock of conventional archaeology. These aren't the roaring waves of a lost civilization crashing upon our shores, but rather the faint, almost imperceptible echoes, like pebbles dropped into a deep, forgotten well. These are the out-of-place artifacts, the operts, as they are sometimes controversially, dismissively labeled, objects that simply do not belong where or when they were found. They are the inconvenient truths, the quiet, persistent questions that established narratives prefer to sweep under the rug, hoping they will simply fade away. Imagine a miner, deep within a coal seam that geological science dates back millions of years, striking not coal, but a perfectly formed metallic vase, intricate and impossibly refined for a time before any known human civilization. Or a geode, cracked open after eons, revealing not glittering crystals, but what appears to be a modern-day spark plug encased in rock aged beyond any reasonable human chronology. These aren't isolated incidents, but rather a recurring whisper from the depths of time, a persistent hum that suggests our understanding of the chronological march of human ingenuity might be tragically, beautifully, incomplete. Consider, for a moment, the strange enigma known as the Coso artifact. Discovered in 1961 by rockhounds searching for geodes in the Coso Mountains of California, it was a ceramic-like object, seemingly composed of a metal core, encased in a hard fossilized clay, itself embedded within a larger geode-like formation. Initial analysis, though brief and contested, suggested its form bore an uncanny resemblance to a modern spark plug, complete with a porcelain insulator and metallic casing. The rock in which it was found was estimated to be at least 500,000 years old, a staggering timeline that places its supposed creation long before Homo sapiens was even thought to exist, let alone possess the technology for such an intricate device. Now, of course, the scientific community, quite rightly, demands rigorous proof, and the Coso artifact has been subjected to much skepticism, dismissed by many as a geological peculiarity, or even a hoax. But the quiet disquiet it generated, the genuine perplexity it instilled in those who first held it, speaks volumes. It's not just the object itself, but the impossibility it represents. It forces us to confront a silent, unsettling question. If it truly is an ancient artifact, then who crafted it? What forgotten hand possessed such knowledge? The answer, if it dared to be spoken aloud, would send shivers down the spine of every neatly ordered timeline in every museum and textbook across the land. It's a thought almost too heavy for a gentle whisper, yet it lingers, persistent as the scent of sage on a warm evening breeze. These objects, scattered across continents and deep within the Earth's strata, are not meant to overturn our understanding with a sudden bang, but to gently erode it, grain by grain. They are the footnotes dismissed, the anomalies explained away, the data points that don't fit the curve. Yet, their very existence, however debated, chips away at the monolithic certainty of our historical narrative. They paint a mosaic of possibilities, each fragment hinting at a reality far richer and more complex than we've allowed ourselves to imagine. Beyond these perplexing small objects, our journey delves into anomalies of a grander, more structural nature. The unexplained geological formations that seem to bear the indelible, yet inexplicable, marks of intelligence. Imagine vast, perfectly carved rock formations deep within ancient caves, exhibiting a precision that defies natural processes, yet predating any known culture capable of such feats. Or, consider the possibility of ancient, submerged structures, like the debated Bimini Road off the coast of Florida, a seemingly artificial pavement of massive, rectangular limestone blocks, stretching for hundreds of yards beneath the ocean's surface. While mainstream geology often attributes such formations to natural coastal erosion and sedimentation. The sheer regularity, the almost deliberate alignment of these blocks, continues to haunt the edges of our understanding. If not nature, then what? And if intelligent design, then by whom? And when did these master builders ply their craft beneath the waves? The melancholic reflection here is not just about the mystery of their origin, but the poignant thought of entire settlements, perhaps even cities, now swallowed by the indifferent embrace of the sea, their very existence a silent testament to a world we have utterly forgotten. Even on dry land, the whispers persist. Throughout the United States, from the monumental earthworks of Ohio, built by cultures we still struggle to fully comprehend, to the puzzling, deeply buried, megalithic walls, occasionally uncovered during construction or excavation, often far beneath, these aren't simple rockfalls or haphazard arrangements. They are formations that exhibit an intelligent pattern, a deliberate effort, yet they are found in contexts that make them chronologically impossible for known human hands. They are the Earth's own memory, etched in stone, defying the easy answers. These quiet inconsistencies, these melancholic echoes from deep time, are not presented as definitive proofs. Far from it. They are invitations. Invitations to pause, to breathe, and to allow the possibility that our comfortable understanding of the past is, at best, a charming simplification. They beckon us to look beyond the rigid dogma, to listen to the whispers of the earth itself, to feel the gentle tremor beneath the surface of what we believe to be true. They remind us, with a subtle sorrow, that we might be inheritors, not pioneers. And in that humbling realization, in the quiet admission that our history is profoundly incomplete, lies the true beginning of our journey. Imagine, for a moment, the quiet hum of a summer evening in a forgotten field, somewhere deep in the heartland of America, stars beginning to prick through the fading cobalt sky. You're sitting there, the scent of dry earth and sage on the air, and a thought drifts in, unbidden, like a wisp of smoke from a distant fire. What if this isn't our first time watching these stars? What if, before the concrete and the steel, before the very notion of history as we know it, there were others, minds that gazed at these same celestial bodies, hands that shaped stones into impossible forms, hearts that loved and feared under a sun just like ours? A whispered possibility, almost too profound to speak aloud. It's not about grand, flashing revelations, but the subtle tremor beneath the surface of what we believe to be true. A melancholic echo from deep time, suggesting we might be inheritors, not pioneers. A quiet question that lingers in the cool night air. What did they know? This quiet questioning leads us not to some sunken city or overgrown jungle temple, but to a windswept hilltop in southeastern Turkey, a place now known as Göbekli Tepe. For decades, the story of human civilization seemed neatly linear. Scattered hunter-gatherers, then the slow, painstaking discovery of agriculture, leading to settled villages, then cities, and finally, the dawn of complex societies. It was a comfortable narrative, a logical progression that flattered our modern intellect. And then, Göbekli Tepe emerged from the earth, not with a bang, but with a silent, profound challenge to everything we thought we knew. It began subtly in the mid-1990s, the initial whispers of something ancient stirring beneath the surface. What archaeologists found was not just old, but impossibly old. Carbon dating pushed the construction of Göbekli Tepe back to roughly 9,600 to 8,200 BCE. Let that sink in. This isn't just pre-Roman or pre-Greek. It's pre-Babylonian, pre-Egyptian, pre-Sumerian. It's so ancient, it makes Stonehenge look like a relatively recent construction project, a mere child in comparison. The Great Pyramids of Giza, monuments we associate with the absolute dawn of sophisticated civilization, are practically modern edifices next to the silent, carved stones of Göbekli Tepe. The sheer age is startling enough, But what truly unravels our neat historical timelines is the state of human development at that epoch. This was the tail end of the Stone Age, the very cusp of what we've termed the Neolithic Revolution. By all conventional accounts, this was a world populated by nomadic hunter-gatherers, small bands eking out an existence, their lives dictated by the rhythm of migration and the hunt. Agriculture, the supposed catalyst for permanent settlements and the communal labor required for monumental architecture. Wheat and other staples would only begin to be domesticated after Göbekli Tepe was already standing, already imbued with centuries of purpose. So, how does one reconcile immensely complex megalithic structures with a society of seemingly simple hunter-gatherers? This is the core enigma, the quiet, persistent hum that Göbekli Tepe emanates. The site is not a city, not a dwelling place. It appears to be a series of massive circular enclosures, each defined by enormous T-shaped pillars, some weighing as much as 20 tons and standing up to 18 feet tall. These are not rough, unworked stones. They are carefully quarried, meticulously shaped, and adorned with breathtakingly intricate carvings. Bas-reliefs of lions, boars, foxes, snakes, scorpions, and various birds, vultures, cranes, teem across their surfaces. These aren't crude stick figures. They are sophisticated, dynamic representations, demonstrating a profound artistic skill and an intimate knowledge of the natural world. Consider the logistics. To quarry stone pillars weighing multiple tons, transport them, and then erect them, requires not just brute strength, but a level of organized labor, engineering foresight, and communal purpose that challenges every assumption we've held about Stone Age societies. It speaks of a sophisticated division of labor, a means of provisioning and sustaining a workforce, and likely, a complex social hierarchy capable of coordinating such monumental efforts. Who was directing this work? What persuasion held hundreds, perhaps thousands, of people together for such a protracted and arduous task when the immediate needs of survival were still paramount? The answer, archaeologists now theorize, points away from purely practical motivations and towards something far more profound: belief. Göbekli Tepe is widely interpreted as the world's first known temple complex, a sacred precinct built for ritual and ceremony. It suggests that, perhaps contravening our long-held theories, it was not the pragmatic need for food that spurred humans to settle and cooperate on a grand scale, but something far more ethereal. A shared cosmology, a spiritual yearning, a collective search for meaning. Did the act of building a sanctuary, a place to commune with the unknown, precede the village, drawing people together before they discovered how to tie themselves to the land with agriculture? This reversal of cause and effect is nothing short of revolutionary. The pillars themselves, the T-shapes, are often interpreted as stylized human forms, their flat tops perhaps representing heads, the horizontal line, shoulders. Some even have carved arms and hands, hinting at an anthropomorphic quality, silent sentinels guarding ancient secrets. What stories did these figures tell? What deities or spirits did they represent? We can only guess, piecing together fragments of a belief system that vanished with its creators. The animals carved upon them are not domesticated species, but wild, powerful creatures, hinting at a deep reverence for the untamed world, perhaps totemic significance, or symbols of cosmic forces. They speak of a mind that observed, understood, and sought to express its place within the vastness of existence, much like we do today, albeit through entirely different lenses. And then, there's the final, melancholic chapter of Göbekli Tepe, its deliberate burial. Sometime after centuries, perhaps even a millennium of use, the entire complex was purposefully backfilled and covered with earth. Not destroyed by invaders, not abandoned to the ravages of time, but carefully, painstakingly interred, as if to preserve it, or perhaps to lay it to rest. Why? Was it a ritual act of conclusion? A way to safeguard sacred knowledge from a changing world? Or did the very belief system that birthed it eventually fade, its purpose lost to a new generation who sought to start anew, leaving behind a silent testament to what came before? This act of entombment adds a layer of profound sadness to the site. It feels like a conscious effort to erase or seal away a chapter of human existence, leaving us with a whisper of its passing. Göbekli Tepe stands, or rather, lay buried, as a stark reminder that our understanding of the human story is far from complete, punctuated by vast, silent lacunae. It humbles us, suggesting that the ingenuity, spiritual depth, and organizational prowess we often attribute solely to civilized societies were present in our ancestors far, far earlier than we dared to imagine. As the quiet hum of that summer evening settles, and the stars assert their ancient dominance in the velvet sky, Göbekli Tepe becomes more than just an archaeological site. It becomes a mirror, reflecting our own assumptions, and then shattering them. It whispers of a lost wisdom, a forgotten epoch when human consciousness was grappling with the great questions of existence in ways we are only just beginning to fathom. It suggests that, perhaps, the path to understanding ourselves doesn't lie solely in tracing a linear progression, but in listening to the echoes from deep time, to the quiet, profound questions asked by minds that watched these very same stars, long, long before us. What did they know, these silent architects of the Stone Age, and what quiet sorrow led them to bury their magnificent secrets for us to unearth, millennia later, as inheritors struggling to decipher their legacy? The whispers of forgotten fields, the scent of ancient earth, they pull us inexorably, not just across continents, but into the very depths of the world, into the cool embrace of the ocean. For if civilizations once thrived upon the land, basking under familiar suns, what became of those that faced a more relentless, silent adversary? What if the monuments we seek aren't always found beneath layers of desert sand or jungle canopy, but swallowed whole by the slow and inexorable rise of the sea, becoming spectral cities in a liquid realm? Imagine the sea, not as an empty expanse, but as a vast, shifting curtain, veiling secrets that could redefine our sense of beginning. We've always looked skyward for answers, or across horizontal plains. But sometimes, the profoundest questions lie vertically, beneath the surface, where light dims and silence deepens, broken only by the current's soft sigh. This is where the story takes a turn, not into speculation born of myth, but into the tantalizing, often frustrating realm of underwater archaeology, a world of shadows and possibilities, where every stone could be a natural formation or a shattered dream from a time before memory. Our first descent takes us far, across the Pacific, to the warm turquoise waters off the coast of Yonaguni Island, Japan. Here, beneath the waves, lies a structure of such imposing scale and peculiar geometry that it has haunted the periphery of mainstream archaeology for decades. The Yonaguni Monument. Discovered by a local diver, it's a colossal, submerged stone formation that stretches hundreds of feet, featuring what appear to be massive steps, terraces, straight lines, sharp angles, and even what some interpret as carved images and pathways. It rises from the seabed like a submerged pyramid, or perhaps a vast ancient ziggurat, crafted not for the heavens, but for the earth it once stood upon. To merely call it its stone feels insufficient. These are gigantic, monolithic blocks, seemingly cut with incredible precision, forming perfect 90-degree angles and smooth, flat surfaces. There are theories, of course, the careful, measured voices of geology, suggesting that Yonaguni is nothing more than a spectacular natural formation, shaped over millennia by seismic activity, currents, and erosion. Sandstone, after all, can fracture in remarkably regular ways. The slow grind of tectonic plates, the relentless caress of water, these are powerful sculptors capable of artistry beyond human comprehension. And indeed, many geologists argue that the apparent straight lines and terraces are merely the result of natural faulting and weathering patterns, enhanced by pareidolia, our human tendency to see familiar shapes in random patterns. Yet, a counter-whisper persists. It comes from those who have touched its cold, ancient surfaces, who have measured its impossible angles. They point to features that seem too regular, too intentional, to be purely natural. There are what look like roads, a giant archway, even two enormous, intricately carved turtle-like figures. Some researchers claim to have found evidence of tool marks, drill holes, and a distinct, almost unmistakable architectural signature. If Yonaguni is natural, it is a geological marvel almost beyond belief. But if it is artificial, if it truly is a submerged city, a monumental temple, or a ceremonial platform, then it speaks of a civilization far older, far more sophisticated than our current histories allow. It implies a people who were building on a grand scale at a time when we believe humanity was barely stepping out of caves, a time when this land would have been above sea level, some 8,000 to 12,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age. The thought is a somber one. What incredible knowledge, what profound understanding of their world, was lost when the waves claimed their masterpiece. The ocean, in its silent, indifferent power, erased not just a city, but perhaps an entire chapter of human ingenuity. Leaving the enigmatic depths of Yonaguni, we travel across the vast Pacific, through the Panama Canal, and into the sun-dappled shallows of the Atlantic, to the Bimini Islands in the Bahamas. Here, the water is a kaleidoscope of blues and greens, and beneath its gentle undulations lies another compelling, yet deeply debated mystery: the Bimini Road. Discovered in 1968, the Bimini Road is a mile-long stretch of large rectangular and polygonal limestone blocks, laid out in an uncannily straight line, as if forming a submerged ancient pathway or a colossal wall. The stones are massive, some weighing several tons, and appear to be fitted together with a precision that defies simple natural explanation. To swim above them, to see this seemingly deliberate arrangement of stones stretching into the blue haze, evokes an immediate, visceral sense of human purpose. It's hard not to imagine hands having placed them, minds having conceived this line, guiding people or goods along a now forgotten route. The argument for its artificiality often cites the sheer regularity of the stones, their uniform thickness, and their distinct alignment. Some researchers, notably those inspired by Edgar Cayce's psychic readings of a lost continent of Atlantis in the Bahamas, see it as clear evidence of a sophisticated pre-flood civilization. They point to what they interpret as cut marks, right angles, and the sheer improbability of such a perfectly straight, geometrically consistent formation occurring naturally. If it is a road, it suggests not just construction, but complex social organization, engineering skills, and a civilization thriving in an area that is now submerged. However, once again, the geological explanation stands firm. Scientists argue that the Bimini Road is a classic example of naturally occurring beach rock, formed when sand, shell fragments, and other debris are cemented together by calcium carbonate over time, often breaking into regular blocks due to wave action, tidal erosion, and pressure. They contend that the apparent straightness is a trick of perspective, or simply a coincidence of geological processes. The sea, they remind us, has an infinite capacity for shaping the land, and sometimes its work mimics patterns we associate with human intent. The stones, they say, are not perfectly cut. Their edges are naturally fractured, and any apparent precision is an illusion born of the viewing angle and the desire to find meaning. And so, the Bimini Road remains, like Yonaguni, a question mark etched into the seabed. It embodies that delicate balance between scientific skepticism and the tantalizing possibility of something grander, something lost. These submerged marvels, whether sculpted by nature's indifferent hand or by the deliberate ingenuity of forgotten people, force us to confront the immense power of the ocean, a power that can both create and erase. They compel us to ponder the scale of time, the fleeting nature of even the most robust human endeavors, and the profound, almost aching silence that falls when a civilization, for whatever reason, slips beneath the waves. To witness these places, even if only through photographs and scientific papers, is to experience a peculiar form of melancholy. It's the sadness of absence, the ache for stories forever muted by the depths. It's the realization that if such places were indeed cities, then entire lives, loves, struggles, triumphs, everyday moments, were swallowed by the rising tides, leaving no trace but these ambiguous, silent stones. What did they know? What wisdom did they possess before the waters came, before their world became our mystery? The ocean, cold and vast, holds its secrets close, reminding us that our present is merely a thin layer atop an unfathomable past, and that, perhaps, we are not the first, nor will we be the last, to gaze at the stars and wonder what lies beneath. Imagine, then, our silent musing carrying us across continents, across the vastness of the Pacific, until we find ourselves not in a forgotten American field, but perched high in the Andean Altiplano, where the air is thin and crisp and the sky feels impossible. Here, near the shimmering, myth-laden waters of Lake Titicaca, two names whisper across the ancient landscape: Tiwanaku and Pumapunku. They are not merely ruins. They are puzzles carved in stone, monuments to a profound question that echoes louder than any wind. The first impression often is one of immense scale, of human endeavor pushed to its limits and beyond. Wah, wah, wah. But as the eye adjusts, as the mind begins to truly see, it is not the size that bewilders as much as the key precision. We are speaking of stonework so intricate, so impossibly fine, that it defies our conventional understanding of ancient engineering. Power wa boran da du re. Let's focus first on Pumapunku, a place that feels less like a ruin and more like a colossal, deconstructed machine, left by a civilization that vanished in a breath. Here, amidst the scattered blocks of red sandstone and gray andesite, lies the most perplexing evidence. Picture the H-blocks, massive, multi-ton pieces of stone, each carved with a series of intricate geometric cuts, interlocking notches, and perfectly flat surfaces. They resemble nothing so much as giant, prefabricated construction modules, designed to fit together with a mathematical exactitude that astounds. These H-blocks are not just large. They are masterpieces of a lost craft. The angles are perfect, right angles, some internal and external, suggesting a mastery of geometry and measurement that seems centuries ahead of its presumed time. The cuts are razor-sharp, as if made with a laser, leaving behind perfectly smooth, polished surfaces without any visible tool marks. Imagine running your fingertips along one of these edges. It feels almost like glass, cold and unforgivingly precise. These aren't crude chiseling attempts. These are surgical strikes against the very nature of stone. Consider the material itself, andesite. It's an incredibly hard volcanic rock, second only to diamond in its resistance to abrasion. To cut, shape, and polish such stone with bronze or copper tools, which are the only known metals of that era, is not merely difficult. It's widely considered impossible by modern masons and geologists alike. Copper will simply deform against andesite. Obsidian or flint, while sharper, couldn't achieve the scale and consistency of these cuts without breaking repeatedly, leaving behind a mess of crude marks, not the elegant, almost industrial finish we observe. And then there's the sheer weight of these blocks. Some estimate certain pieces at Pumapunku to weigh well over 100 tons. How were these colossal masses quarried, transported for miles across challenging terrain, and then lifted into position? The landscape around Pumapunku offers no evidence of the complex systems of ramps, rollers, or animal power. The very idea of an ancient people, without the wheel or known advanced lifting technologies, Manipulating such monolithic components evokes a profound sense of disbelief. It forces us to reconsider the very definition of primitive. Nearby, the city of Tiwanaku stands as a testament to similar, if slightly less baffling, achievements. While some of its structures show more conventional masonry, much of it, particularly the earlier phases, exhibits the same astounding precision. The famous Gate of the Sun, carved from a single massive block of andesite, features intricate relief carvings that speak to a profound astronomical and cosmological understanding. Darling, but look closer at its construction, and the construction of other platforms and temples. Massive stones fitted so perfectly together that not even a knife blade can be slipped between them. This anacoustic masonry, without the use of mortar, relies entirely on the perfection of the stone-on-stone fit. Such a method demands not just skill, but an absolute command over geometry, material properties, and a precise understanding of the Earth's gravitational forces. It's this quiet, unsettling perfection that compels us to pause. It's not just about strength, it's about a meticulousness that seems almost alien. Our current historical narrative attributes the development of such advanced engineering to much later civilizations equipped with iron tools, pulleys, and often the forced labor of vast populations. Yet here, in the cold, thin air of the Altiplano, stand monuments that whisper of a different story. What kind of tools could achieve such cuts? What kind of knowledge allowed for such perfect angles, such polished surfaces, such intricate interlocking systems? Could they have employed a technique involving sound or vibration to liquefy the stone, allowing for precise shaping? Or perhaps some form of abrasive, far more potent than anything we currently attribute to them, applied with incredible mechanical consistency? The mind drifts to the possibility of lost arts, forgotten sciences, techniques that have simply vanished from human memory, leaving only their perplexing results behind. This isn't about sensational claims of alien visitors or impossible magic. No, it's far more subtle, and in a way, far more mournful. It's about the very real, tangible evidence that challenges the linear progression of human technological development as we understand it. It suggests that there might have been a branch, a trajectory, a path of human ingenuity that reached astonishing heights, only to be pruned from the tree of history, leaving us, the supposed pinnacle, to wonder at their silent, stony achievements. The melancholy sets in when we realize that whatever advanced knowledge or technology these people possessed, it is utterly lost to us. They left no written records describing their methods, no blueprints for their impossible cuts. They built with enduring stone, yes, but their wisdom, their scientific understanding, their very way of doing things evaporated into the thin Andean air, leaving us to stare at their magnificent remnants and feel the profound ache of forgotten brilliance. The quiet question, then, isn't just, how did they do it? But what did they know that we have forgotten? What if, before our own slow, incremental climb towards technological prowess, another civilization on this very earth had found a different, perhaps more elegant, path? What if they achieved a mastery over materials and forces that we are only now beginning to rediscover, or perhaps have yet to even conceive? Pumapunku and Tiwanaku stand as silent sentinels to this profound possibility. They are not merely ancient ruins. They are a direct challenge to our historical complacency, an invitation to embrace a deeper, more mysterious past. As the sun sets over the Altiplano, casting long, stark shadows across these impossible stones, they whisper of a lineage we might not fully grasp, of inheritors rather than pioneers, and of a grander, more enigmatic human story than we have ever dared to tell ourselves. Their very existence is a gentle, melancholic proof that the tapestry of human history might be far richer and far more complex than the threads we currently hold. The quiet question that lingered in the cool night air, in that forgotten field under a sky stitched with stars, finds an echo in the most unexpected of places, within the brittle folds of ancient parchment, etched with lines that defied time. It's a whisper, really. A suggestion carried on the faintest breeze from a past too distant for our easy grasp. What if the cartographers of the so-called Age of Discovery were not quite as original as we've been led to believe? What if their painstaking work was, in part, a copying of copies, faint echoes of a knowledge far older, far more profound? We live with the comforting narrative of linear progress, of a world slowly unveiled by intrepid explorers, their ships cutting brave paths across an unknown sea. But sometimes, when the light hits just right, or when we are quiet enough to truly listen, fragments emerge that gently unravel this carefully woven tapestry. Consider, for a moment, the Piri Reis map. Discovered in 1929 in the Imperial Palace Library in Istanbul, this document, compiled in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral named Piri Reis, is a geographical anomaly. It depicts the western coast of Africa, the eastern coast of South America, and, most astonishingly, a portion of the coastline of Antarctica. Now, pause and let that sink in. Christopher Columbus had only discovered the Americas a mere 2 decades prior to Piri Reis's creation. The very notion of accurate longitudes was centuries away, only truly solved with the invention of reliable chronometers in the 18th century. Yet, here, on this faded gazelle skin, are coastlines rendered with an impossible precision for its era. The Amazon River is shown flowing into the Atlantic, distinct and clear, at a time when its true course was largely unknown to European cartographers. The Caribbean islands, too, are depicted with a startling fidelity. But it's the Antarctic portion that truly gives one pause, a melancholic tremor beneath the surface of historical certainty. The map shows the coastline of Queen Maud Land, not as the icebound continent we know today, but with rivers flowing freely, suggesting an ice-free landmass. Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until 1820, and its true coastline, hidden beneath a mile-thick sheet of ice, wasn't fully mapped until the mid-20th century, largely through seismic surveys and aerial photography. How could Piri Reis, in the early 16th century, have access to such information? He himself noted on the map's margins that he compiled it from 20 older maps, some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. It's a quiet confession, a whispered admission that he, too, was an inheritor of ancient knowledge, not its originator. The implications are vast, stretching beyond mere cartographic curiosity. They suggest a global navigational capacity, an advanced understanding of geography, and perhaps even sophisticated observational techniques existing not just centuries, but potentially millennia before our conventional historical timelines allow. It speaks of an age when someone, somewhere, possessed the means to chart the world from a vantage point that feels almost impossible for any known ancient civilization. And the Piri Reis map is not alone in its silent testimony. Another echo comes from the Orontius Phineas map, drawn in 1531. This map, too, presents a highly detailed depiction of the Antarctic continent, again showing ice-free land, complete with mountain ranges, valleys, and river systems that correspond eerily with the subglacial topography revealed by modern geological surveys. Think of the sheer audacity of this, a 16th century mapmaker illustrating a continent that wouldn't be explored for another 300 years, and doing so with details that modern science would only confirm with advanced technology in the 20th century. What does it mean to gaze upon these maps? It's not a moment of grand revelation, no flashing lights or booming pronouncements. Instead, it's a slow, quiet seep of understanding, like water finding its way through dry earth. It's a realization that perhaps the world we think we know, the history we've been taught, is but one thin layer of a much deeper, much more complex narrative. The Orontius Phineas map, with its rivers carving paths through land that has been buried under ice for thousands, perhaps even millions of years, hints at a presence, a watchful eye, from an era so remote it challenges the very fabric of our anthropological understanding. When was Antarctica last ice-free to this extent? Geologists suggest millions of years ago, long before any Homo sapiens are thought to have walked the Earth, let alone developed the advanced skills necessary for global cartography. Or, alternatively, if the ice-free depiction is accurate, it points to a significantly more recent, yet still profoundly ancient, period when the Earth's climate and geography were vastly different, and a sophisticated civilization was there to witness and record it. These maps whisper of a time when the entire planet might have been known, navigated, and charted, not by rough and ready adventurers in wooden caravels, but by beings with a comprehensive understanding of the Earth's spherical nature, with methods of determining longitude and latitude that remain a mystery to us, or perhaps even with a capacity for aerial observation. The very thought conjures a melancholic image, a civilization that spanned the globe, its ships sailing every ocean, its knowledge comprehensive, yet now entirely forgotten, leaving behind only these enigmatic, silent witnesses. Why did they disappear? What cataclysm, what slow decline, what profound shift erased them so completely that only these faint blueprints of their knowledge remain? Was it a flood, a comet, a change in the Earth's axis, or simply the relentless erosion of time and the fragility of human endeavor? The maps don't tell us, of course. They only pose the question, a quiet insistence that we consider the possibility of a grander, lost chapter in the human story. They remind us, with a gentle sadness, that our present understanding is perhaps less a grand pioneering venture and more a rediscovery, a slow and stumbling relearning of truths once held by others. To look at these ancient maps, then, is to feel a profound sense of humility. It's to sit in that quiet field under the vast American sky, to feel the cool night air on your skin, and to ponder the vastness of time and the ephemeral nature of all human achievement. These aren't just historical curiosities, they are echoes from deep time, blueprints of a lost world, whispering of a knowledge we barely comprehend, urging us to question gently what we truly know about where we came from, and who, perhaps, came before us. They suggest we might be inheritors after all, picking up the scattered pieces of a legacy too grand to have ever truly vanished. And in that quiet contemplation, a new kind of wonder, tinged with a delicate sorrow, begins to bloom. The quiet hum of the evening deepens, no longer just the drone of insects, but a resonant stillness that seems to carry the echoes of countless other nights, other watchers. The stars, now a glittering tapestry across the vast, dark canvas above, are indifferent witnesses to our fleeting passage, yet they have been a constant for every gaze that ever turned skyward. If the earth beneath our feet holds secrets in its strata and its stones, then surely the stories we tell ourselves, the myths woven into the very fabric of our being, must hold even deeper, more intimate whispers of what came before. It's here, in the gentle cadence of ancient narratives, that we might find the most persistent, most fragile evidence of those forgotten times. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the quiet murmur of a storyteller, perhaps by a flickering fire, somewhere in the Fertile Crescent, or deep within the Amazonian rainforest, or on a windswept plain in what we now call the American West. The details might shift, the names of the gods, the specific animals, the colors of the dawn, but the core, the deepest pulse, often remains startlingly similar. Almost universally, humanity has grappled with the profound question of origins. Where did we come from? How did this world, so vibrant and often so cruel, begin? Across oceans and continents, from the Sumerian tablets to the sacred scrolls of the Maya, from the Elder Edda of the Norse to the intricate cosmologies of the Navajo people, we find creation myths that speak of a time when the world was shaped by powerful, often divine. There are tales of primordial waters, of chaos yielding to order, of a great spirit breathing life into clay or dust. Sometimes, It's a celestial egg, or a cosmic tree, or a divine craftsperson meticulously assembling the elements. What strikes one, with a quiet melancholy, is not just the shared jacti of creation, but often the shared feeling of a world that began with a certain grace, a certain perfection, only to gradually descend into its present, more fractured state. There's a longing in these stories, a sense of remembering a purer, more direct connection to the source of all things, almost as if the first humans, or the first beings, inhabited a world far more attuned to the rhythms of the cosmos. These aren't just quaint fables. They are deeply felt attempts to remember the fundamental nature of existence, perhaps even a faded memory of a world and a people profoundly different from our own. And then, almost as pervasive as the stories of creation, comes the shadow of devastation, the Great Flood. It's a narrative that washes over nearly every major culture, a chilling testament to a global deluge that wiped the slate clean, leaving only a scattered few to begin again. From the Epic of Gilgamesh, predating the biblical Noah, to the Greek myth of Deucalion and Pyrrha, to the countless indigenous flood stories found across North and South America, the Algonquin, the Hopi, the Cherokee, among many others, the details might vary. Perhaps it was a vengeful god, or a cosmic cleansing, or simply a natural disaster of unimaginable scale. But the core elements are eerily consistent. A world submerged, humanity nearly annihilated, and a small, resilient remnant clinging to survival, often in an ark or on a high mountain, entrusted with the sacred duty of repopulating the earth. There's a quiet sorrow in these flood myths, a profound sense of loss that transcends the narrative itself. It's the memory of a world irrevocably altered, a civilization, or perhaps many, swept away, their knowledge, their achievements, their very existence, dissolved into the churning waters. We read these tales, and a shiver runs down the spine, not just at the thought of a cataclysm, but at the realization that such a widespread memory must spring from something more than mere coincidence. Could it be a collective human trauma, etched into our deepest ancestral memories? A catastrophic event that humanity barely survived, forcing a reset, a new beginning built upon the drowned ruins of the old. It's a whispered lament for something lost, forever obscured by the muddy waters of time. And who were these beings who lived before, or during, or even after such world-ending events? Many of these ancient narratives speak of giants or powerful progenitors. These aren't always literal beings of immense physical stature, though sometimes they are. More often, they are figures of immense knowledge, profound wisdom, or extraordinary abilities. They are the first ones, the sky people, the star people, the teachers who brought agriculture, law, or writing to nascent human societies. Think of the Watchers in apocryphal texts, the Nephilim mentioned in Genesis, the Titans of Greek mythology, the benevolent Quetzalcoatl in Mesoamerican traditions, or the various culture heroes and ancestral spirits in Native American lore, who taught humans. These progenitors often seem to hail from a different order of existence, possessing a mastery over the natural world or an understanding of the cosmos that dwarfs our own. They built things that defy modern explanation: megalithic structures, precision-cut stones, astronomical observatories oriented with impossible accuracy. Their stories evoke a sense of awe, but also a poignant feeling of inadequacy. We are their inheritors, perhaps, but also their diminished descendants, struggling to understand the fragments of wisdom they left behind. Well, the idea isn't of monstrous brutes, but rather of beings potentially more advanced, more attuned, existing on a different plane of consciousness or with technologies so unlike our own that we could only describe them as magics or divine intervention. The persistence of these universal themes, the grand creation, the devastating flood, the powerful progenitors, across cultures separated by vast distances and millennia, begs a quiet, unsettling question. Are these merely imaginative leaps of the human mind, independently arriving at similar archetypes? Or do they represent something far more profound, a shared memory, a collective unconscious echo of a true past? A time when the world was different, when beings walked the earth with a knowledge we have lost, when a great catastrophe reshaped the very landscape of our planet and the trajectory of human history. It's a melancholy thought to consider that our most cherished myths might not be mere fiction, but rather the fractured, poetic remnants of a much older truth. They suggest that perhaps humanity's journey is not a linear ascent, but a cyclical narrative of rise and fall, of remembering and forgetting. We are left with the hushed implication that our current civilization, with all its advancements and complexities, might be just one chapter in an infinitely longer story, following an age, or ages, whose grandeur and tragedies are now. These myths, then, are not just stories for sleep, but an awakening to the possibility that we are not the first, and perhaps one day we will not be the last, to gaze upon these unchanging stars and wonder about the silent, lost cities of time. Imagine then the soft erosion of centuries, not by wind and water on a sandstone cliff, but by time itself on the very fabric of human memory. We speak of civilizations lost to the sands, their cities reclaimed by jungle, but what of the geology that animated those vibrant worlds? What of the quiet wisdom, the profound insights, the intricate understanding that might have been woven into their daily lives, their sacred rites, their very way of seeing the stars above them? It's a thought that settles gently, like evening mist, suggesting that perhaps our current trajectory of discovery is less a pioneering venture and more a hesitant retracing of forgotten steps. We pride ourselves on the meticulous cataloging of our intellectual heritage, the vast digital libraries, the carefully preserved tomes. Yet, even in our modern hubris, we sense the fragility of it all. We know, with a pang, of the Library of Alexandria, a name that echoes with a particular resonant sorrow. Not merely a building consumed by flame, but a universe of thought, of inquiry, of accumulated human experience reduced to ash and smoke. How many scrolls, how many treatises on medicine, astronomy, philosophy, engineering, or the very nature of existence were lost in that singular catastrophe? And Alexandria was but one beacon, albeit the brightest, in a constellation of ancient repositories. Imagine the libraries of Hattusa, of Persepolis, of Byzantium, not just as historical footnotes, but as entire epistemologies, unique ways of knowing and interpreting the world, that dissolved into dust or were willfully obliterated. The melancholy deepens when we consider not just the grand, documented losses, but the smaller, unrecorded vanishings. The village elder's encyclopedic knowledge of medicinal plants, the tribal shaman's intricate cosmology passed down through generations of oral tradition, the artisan's secret techniques whispered from master to apprentice for millennia. These were living libraries, breathing archives, rich tapestries of understanding that, with the silencing of a voice, the breaking of a lineage, were simply gone. Lost to disease, to conquest, to the relentless, indifferent march of a dominant culture. We speak of extinct languages, but with each language, an entire framework of thought, a unique lens on reality, flickers and dies. What profound observations about the natural world, what subtle nuances of human psychology, what elegant solutions to ancient problems did we let slip away through mere neglect or ignorance? And beyond the tangible loss of texts or the ephemeral loss of oral traditions, there lingers the more elusive concept of esoteric traditions. These were not always doctrines meant for public consumption, nor were they always written down in plain script. They might have been encoded in architecture, embedded in myths, symbolized in art, or preserved through initiation rites, known only to a select few. Think of the ancient mystery schools, the alchemists' cryptic texts, the hermetic traditions that spoke in riddles and allegories. Were these merely superstitious follies, Or were they attempts to safeguard a form of knowledge so profound, so potentially disruptive, that it had to be veiled from the uninitiated? Perhaps a deep understanding of energy, of consciousness, of the very fabric of space-time, was once communicated not through equations and laboratories, but through symbols and states of being. A different kind of science, understood through intuition as much as intellect, connecting the observer directly to the observed in a way we've since compartmentalized. This quiet pondering inevitably leads us to the most poignant question. What was this profound understanding of the cosmos and existence that humanity might have once possessed? It wasn't simply a matter of advanced technology, though that possibility is often tantalizingly hinted at by anomalous artifacts. It was, perhaps, a more holistic awareness, a recognition of the intricate dance between humanity and the natural world, not as separate entities, but as inseparable parts of a grand living system. A deeper insight into celestial mechanics that went beyond predictive astronomy, connecting the movements of planets to the rhythms of life, to the ebb and flow of human consciousness. Imagine a perspective where the universe wasn't just a collection of inert matter governed by blind laws, but a vibrant, intelligent entity with which humanity was in constant, resonant communion. Resonant communion, where the cycles of birth, death, and rebirth were understood not just biologically, but cosmically, as reflections of a universal process. Perhaps they grasped the subtle energies that permeate all things, the interconnectedness of seemingly disparate phenomena, seeing patterns where we see only chaos. A kind of unified field theory, not of physics, but of existence itself, where science, philosophy, and spirituality were not siloed disciplines, but facets of a single luminous truth. This understanding might have informed their very structures of society, their ethics, their relationship with the earth. It might have fostered a sense of responsibility, a reverence for life, a long-term perspective that our short-sighted modern world struggles to grasp. The melancholic whisper suggests that what we have gained in technological prowess, we might have lost in fundamental wisdom. We reach for the stars with rockets, but perhaps they reached for them with their very souls, understanding their place within the grand cosmic tapestry in a way we are only now beginning to dimly rediscover. The evidence for such a profound, lost understanding is, by its very nature, elusive. It's found in the echoes of ancient myths, in the perplexing precision of megalithic structures aligned to forgotten celestial events, in the strange recurring symbols across disparate cultures. It's in the quiet discomfort of an unexplained artifact, or the intuitive pull we feel towards stories of golden ages and enlightened ancestors. It's the feeling that there's a deeper layer to reality, a more sophisticated operating manual for the universe, that we have misplaced somewhere along our frantic journey. In the quiet of a summer night, under the vast American sky, one can almost feel the weight of that lost knowledge. It doesn't scream for attention, but rather sighs, a gentle breeze rustling through the leaves of ancient trees, carrying faint whispers of what once was. It's a humbling thought, tinged with regret, yet also with a strange sense of hope. For if knowledge can be lost, perhaps it can also be found. If understanding can fade, perhaps it can be rekindled. The question isn't just what they knew or why they disappeared, but whether we, standing on the precipice of our own future, are listening closely enough to the faint echoes of the past, hoping to retrieve even a fragment of the wisdom that might save us from repeating their silent descent into the ancient secrets. Perhaps are not entirely gone, merely hidden in plain sight, waiting for a receptive heart and a quiet mind to finally perceive their profound truth. Imagine, for a moment, the quiet hum of a summer evening in a forgotten field. Somewhere deep in the heartland of America, stars beginning to prick through the fading cobalt sky. You're sitting there, the scent of dry earth and sage on the air, and a thought drifts in, unbidden, like a wisp of smoke from a distant fire. What if this isn't our first time watching these stars? What if, before the concrete and the steel, Before the very notion of history as we know it, there were others. Minds that gaze at these same celestial bodies, hands that shaped stones into impossible forms, hearts that loved and feared under a sun just like ours. A whispered possibility, almost too profound to speak aloud. It's not about grand, flashing revelations, but the subtle tremor beneath the surface of what we believe to be true. A melancholic echo from deep time, suggesting we might be inheritors, not pioneers. A quiet question that lingers in the cool night air. What did they know, and why did they disappear? The vast, silent expanse above us, stretching from horizon to horizon in the clear American night, is a canvas painted with light years and ancient history. While I was aware, we look up, perhaps with a sense of wonder, perhaps with a touch of existential dread, but always with the knowledge of our place within it, a tiny blue marble suspended in an infinite dance. Yet, it feels a lonely kind of wonder, doesn't it? As if we are the first to truly grasp the immensity. But what if that feeling of solitary discovery is merely a veil, obscuring the echoes of those who peered into the same abyss millennia ago, armed not with telescopes and satellites, but with an acuity of observation and a depth of spirit we can barely comprehend? What if they charted the heavens with a precision that speaks less of rudimentary science and more of an intimate, profound communion? Consider, if you will, the windswept plains of Wiltshire, England, where the silent, imposing megaliths of Stonehenge stand guard over centuries of speculation. Over centuries of speculation. Dean. Oh, see, they even from this distant shore, under a different sky, its presence exerts a peculiar gravitational pull on the imagination. It's not merely a ring of colossal stones. It's a celestial calendar etched into the very earth, a primal observatory where the movements of the sun and moon retract with breathtaking accuracy. The alignment of the heel stone with the sunrise on the summer solstice, a moment when the first rays of the longest day pierce the heart of the monument, is not a coincidence. It is an intentional, deeply considered act of cosmic connection. Imagine the dawn on that pivotal day, thousands of years ago. The air would have been crisp, the surrounding landscape a tapestry of greens and browns, much like some of our own expansive, untamed lands. People would have gathered, their breath misting in the cool air, their eyes fixed eastward. They weren't just watching for the sun, they were watching for tidal moment, the precise alignment that reaffirmed their place in the universe, that guaranteed the cycle of seasons, the bounty of the earth, and perhaps the favor of unseen forces. This wasn't merely about knowing when to plant or harvest. It was about imbuing life with meaning, synchronizing the human pulse with the cosmic rhythm. The stones themselves, hauled and erected through unimaginable effort, stand as a testament not just to engineering prowess, but to a collective will driven by a profound need to understand and honor the celestial dance. They speak of a society that dedicated vast resources, not to warfare or personal luxury, but to the meticulous charting of the heavens, embedding that knowledge in an enduring monumental form. It suggests a reverence that has largely faded from our own hurried, brightly lit nights. Then, shift your gaze, across oceans and continents, to the sun-baked sands of the Giza Plateau, where the Great Pyramid rises like an artificial mountain, defying the relentless march of time. From a distance, in photographs, it seems a stark, geometric marvel. But standing before it, feeling the sheer weight of its ancient stone, the subtle geometry begins to whisper a different story. Its sides are aligned almost perfectly with the cardinal points, true north, south, east, and west, an astounding feat of astronomical survey. How did they achieve such precision without modern instruments? Was it through an understanding of Polaris, or perhaps through a different set of stars, now long since shifted by precession? Beyond mere cardinal alignment, the pyramid's internal shafts, Slender tunnels piercing through tons of limestone point directly to specific stars in the ancient sky. One famously aims towards Thuban, the pole star of that era, and others toward Orion's belt and Sirius. These aren't random vectors. They are deliberate, celestial pathways. For a culture that believed in the afterlife, that saw their pharaohs ascend to become one with the stars, these alignments take on a deeply spiritual, yet equally scientific, significance. The pyramid, in this light, transforms from a mere tomb into a machine designed to facilitate a cosmic journey, a terrestrial anchor for a soul's ascent into the heavens. It implies a profound integrated worldview, where science, religion, and architecture were not separate disciplines, but interwoven threads of a single majestic tapestry. What does it mean, then, that societies separated by vast distances, without apparent contact, both look skyward with such intent and translated that gaze into monumental, enduring structures? Stonehenge and Giza, though vastly different in form and cultural context, share a fundamental impulse to connect the terrestrial realm with the celestial, to encode cosmic knowledge in stone. It suggests not isolated acts of genius, but perhaps a universal human capacity, or even a shared ancient heritage of wisdom that has been largely forgotten. These alignments are not simply curiosities. They are a language spoken by the past, a silent argument against the notion of a linear, ever-progressing history, where ancient peoples were simple and superstitious. They were, instead, profoundly sophisticated observers, mathematicians, engineers, and philosophers who saw the universe not as a chaotic void, but as an intricately ordered cosmos, deserving of their deepest study and reverence. And in their meticulous charting of the heavens, in their dedication to making their earthly structures resonate with the stars, they left behind not just ruins, but echoes, whispers of a time when humanity understood its place in the grand cosmic scheme, with a clarity and integration that perhaps we, with all our technological marvels, are only just beginning to yearn for once more. A quiet, melancholic question remains. If they knew so much, if they built with such cosmic intent, what else did they understand that has slipped through the sieve of time, leaving us to piece together the fragments of a once complete, magnificent mosaic? The stars, now fully asserted against the velvet canvas of the night, seemed to pulse with a knowing silence. The quiet hum of the summer evening in that forgotten field lingered, a gentle counterpoint to the insistent question stirring within. We speak of history as a linear progression, a steady climb from primitive beginnings to our present complexities. But what if that line is an illusion? A convenient narrative we've constructed to make sense of a past far more tumultuous, far more cyclical? What if the earth itself, in its vast indifference, holds the memory of grander, more terrible resets than we dare to imagine? It's a sobering thought, isn't it? To consider that our meticulously pieced-together timeline might be riddled with vast, silent gaps, eras when the slate of civilization was not merely smudged, but wiped clean by forces so immense they humble our very concept of permanence. The abruptness of these disappearances, the sheer completeness with which advanced cultures seem to vanish, leaving only the most cryptic whispers in the archaeological record, points to something more profound than mere conquest or decline. It suggests a cataclysmic hand, one that perhaps periodically intervenes to prune the garden of human endeavor, allowing only the most resilient seeds to survive and begin anew. Imagine, if you will, the sky suddenly ablaze, not with the gentle shimmer of distant stars, but with a searing, incandescent fire. This is the specter of a cosmic impact, a wanderer from the depths of space, a comet or an asteroid, finding our fragile blue marble in its path. We tend to relegate such events to the realm of fiction or the distant past, the domain of dinosaurs. Yet, the geological record whispers of repeated encounters. A collision of that magnitude wouldn't merely carve out a crater or generate a regional disaster. Its effects would ripple globally, a domino chain of destruction that would shatter the foundations of any advanced civilization. The initial impact itself would be unimaginable, an explosion dwarfing every nuclear device ever conceived, sending shockwaves through the planet's crust, igniting firestorms that would consume forests and cities alike. But that would only be the beginning. The pulverized rock and dust, ejected into the upper atmosphere, would veil the sun, plunging the world into an impact winter. Years, perhaps even decades, of perpetual twilight, frigid temperatures, and acid rain would follow. Photosynthesis would falter, crops would fail, and the delicate web of life, upon which complex societies depend, would unravel. The oceans, too, would bear witness, colossal tsunamis scouring coastlines, erasing port cities and coastal settlements that have always been the cradles of civilization. In such a scenario, what hope would there be for libraries, for intricate instruments, for the accumulated knowledge of millennia? Stone structures might endure, buried beneath layers of sediment and debris, becoming the enigmatic mounds and ruins we unearth today. But the written records, the sophisticated technologies, the very memory of who they were and what they knew. Survivors, if any, would be few, scattered, and utterly bereft, reduced to a desperate struggle for survival in a broken world. Their descendants, generations removed, would inherit only fragmented legends, garbled myths of a golden age that ended in fire and ice. The idea of a global, cohesive civilization, built on intricate trade routes and shared knowledge, would become a fantastical tale, slowly eroding until it faded into the background static of an emerging new consciousness. Then there is an even more profound, more unsettling possibility. The Earth itself, in a moment of seismic recalibration, might shift its very skin. Not a mere magnetic pole reversal, which is a gradual process we're currently witnessing, but a sudden, dramatic crustal displacement. Imagine the planet's outer shell, its lithosphere, suddenly decoupling from its molten core, and within a matter of days or even hours, sliding across its axis. The implications are staggering, almost too terrifying to fully grasp. A sudden pole shift would instantly redefine every geographic and climatic zone on Earth. Regions that were once temperate might find themselves thrust into the Arctic Circle, or vice versa, buried under miles of rapidly forming ice. Equatorial lands could become frigid wastes. The inertia of such a massive shift would generate earthquakes of unimaginable magnitude, tearing continents apart, unleashing volcanic eruptions on a scale never before witnessed by recorded humanity. Tsunamis, not just coastal waves, but truly global oceanic displacements, would sweep across continents, reshaping coastlines and scouring away every trace of human habitation. Consider the megalithic structures, the ancient observatories, the precise alignments with celestial bodies that puzzle us today. If these cultures, steeped in astronomical knowledge, were suddenly to find their skies askew, their North Star no longer north, their seasons violently altered, what would become of their wisdom? Their cities, often built near water for sustenance and trade, would be swallowed by the ocean or crushed by rapidly rising landmasses. The Giza Plateau, the plains of Nazca, the underwater ruins off Japan. These become not just anomalies, but potential echoes of a world violently reordered, its sophisticated inhabitants caught utterly unprepared by the planet's sudden internal revolt. The evidence for such radical events isn't found in neatly preserved libraries, but in the Earth itself. In the sudden changes in geological strata, in the presence of microspherules or nanodiamonds that speak of extraterrestrial impact, in the erratic movements of ancient shorelines, in the inexplicable layers of sediment found far inland. It's in the melancholy suggestion that the land beneath our feet holds secrets we can barely decipher, a testament to a grand cyclical narrative of destruction and rebirth. These catastrophic theories are not about diminishing human achievement. Rather, they offer a framework for understanding the profound silences in our past, the frustrating lack of transition between seemingly advanced and utterly nascent cultures. They suggest that the Dark Ages we so confidently assign to specific historical periods might be, in a deeper sense, a recurring planetary phenomenon. Perhaps the very concept of a continuous, unbroken chain of knowledge stretching back into deep time is a comforting delusion, a way to mitigate the terrifying possibility of utter oblivion. Utter oblivion. As the crickets now chirp in earnest beneath the unwavering gaze of the stars, the thought lingers, a quiet sorrow for all that might have been lost. Not just individuals, not just empires, but entire epochs of human ingenuity and spiritual understanding, wiped clean by cosmic chance or terrestrial upheaval. What? Right on it. We look up at these same stars, but what if we are merely the latest inheritors of a stage that has seen countless acts, each curtain call more abrupt and devastating than the last? We are left then with humility and a lingering question that resonates with the melancholic echo from deep time. What did they know, those who came before, and why, when the world shuddered and reset, did their whispers fall silent? Imagine if the quiet hum of that summer evening could stretch across oceans and millennia, if the stars that watch over the American heartland also gazed upon distant shores where other hands, just as human, perhaps even more knowing, raised monuments to forgotten gods. We drift now from the solitude of a single field to the expansive, echoing chamber of the world itself, guided by the whisper of a truly radical idea. What if these disparate ancient cultures, separated by seemingly impassable gulfs of land and sea, what if, beneath the accepted narratives of isolated invention and independent evolution, there lies a submerged continent of shared knowledge, a global network woven not with fiber optic cables, but with a tapestry of symbols, understanding, and an almost impossible unity? It's a thought that arrives not with a shout, but like the slow, inexorable tide, pulling at the shores of our certitudes. Look closely, and the distinct becomes eerily similar. The pyramids, for instance, rise from the sands of Egypt, majestic and enigmatic. Their very form speaks of a mastery over stone, a profound understanding of geometry and astronomy. Yet, venture across the vast Atlantic into the dense jungles and arid plateaus of Mesoamerica and Peru, and what do we find? Not mere mounds, but monumental structures. How could such parallel architectural ambitions, such uncanny precision, manifest independently on continents that, according to our textbooks, had no contact for millennia? It's not just the grand scale, but the minute details, the subtle echoes in their art and symbolism that begin to tug at the thread of the isolated development theory. Across vastly different cultures, we encounter recurring motifs, the winged discs soaring above depictions of ancient rulers and deities, from ancient Egypt to Mesopotamia, and even echoing faintly in some South American iconography. The tree of life, a universal symbol of connection between earthly and divine realms, appears in various forms, rooted deep within the mythologies of cultures spanning Eurasia and the Americas. The serpent, or dragon, embodying wisdom, creation, destruction, and cyclical time, coils its way through narratives and carvings from the Far East to the Celtic lands and powerfully across the ancient America. Are these mere coincidences, the limited expressions of the human psyche reaching similar conclusions? Or are they mnemonic devices, fragments of a shared visual language, passed down through forgotten conduits? Consider the profound astronomical knowledge embedded in these ancient sites. Stonehenge, with its precise alignments to the sun and moon, speaks of an observer culture with an astonishing grip on celestial mechanics. Yet, the Maya in Central America developed a calendar system so accurate, so intricately linked to the cycles of Venus and the precession of the equinoxes, that it rivals, and in some aspects surpasses, our own. How could societies without telescopes, without the benefit of our vast observational datasets, acquire such sophisticated understanding? Was it inherited knowledge? A legacy passed down from a common source, a foundational civilization whose insights permeated the globe before its own memory faded into the mists of time? War. The idea is melancholic, isn't it? To think that humanity once possessed a more unified understanding of its place in the cosmos, a shared wisdom that has since splintered and been lost, buried under layers of dust and dogma. It suggests that our current trajectory of discovery might, in some ways, be a slow and arduous rediscovery of what was once known. The prevailing academic paradigm often posits that humanity's early journey was one of scattered, independent genesis. Fire, agriculture, writing, monumental architecture, each innovation springing forth from isolated genius only to be reinvented elsewhere through parallel evolution. And while there is undeniable truth to this, the sheer density of anomalous similarities, the recurring patterns that defy statistical probability, begin to challenge this neat framework. It's like finding identical, complex algorithms written in completely different programming languages across disconnected computers, a subtle tremor that suggests a shared programmer, a common source code. What might have facilitated such a global network? The prevailing wisdom dictates that transoceanic travel was largely impossible for ancient peoples until relatively recent times. Yet, whispers of ancient seafaring persist. Phoenician ships venturing further than generally acknowledged. Unexplained artifacts found in unlikely places. The Piri-Reis map, for instance, a Turkish admiral's chart from 1513, depicts portions of Antarctica's coastline as it would appear without ice, an astonishing detail for a map predating its official discovery and long before seismic sounding technology existed. Such anomalies, gentle as they are, hint at a pre-cataclysmic world of more capable navigators, of routes and passages that have long since been forgotten, subsumed by rising seas or erased by the relentless march of geological time. Perhaps the deepest sadness in this contemplation is the realization that we, in our modern hubris, might be overlooking the very roots of our existence, dismissing the profound ingenuity and interconnectedness of our distant ancestors. The quiet monuments scattered across the American landscape, from the geometric earthworks of the Ohio Valley to the Pueblo cliff dwellings of the Southwest, become less isolated curiosities and more like pieces of a larger global puzzle. Were the mound builders of Cahokia, who aligned their vast city with celestial bodies, part of a knowledge tradition that echoed across the globe? Did the whispers of the Maya calendar find their way, however faintly, to the astronomers of Chaco Canyon? This vision of a unified prehistory is not one of grand, flashing revelations, but of gentle unraveling, a slow re-stitching of threads that have been frayed and forgotten. It proposes a world where ancient minds, fueled by curiosity and an innate drive to understand their cosmos, perhaps charted courses we deem impossible, shared ideas we believe to be exclusive, and built a global tapestry. It changes the narrative from one of isolated struggles to a more poignant tale of shared beginnings, shared wisdom, and ultimately, a shared forgetting. And as the night deepens over the heartland, carrying with it the scent of dry earth and the silent wisdom of the stars, the question lingers. What unified dream did they once share? And how might we begin to remember it? We spoke of whispers, didn't we? Of the faint echo of footsteps on a path long overgrown, a path that might once have led to flourishing cities or serene temples, now swallowed by the patient earth. We've been trained, having fallen into the habit of looking for certain kinds of evidence, the shard of pottery, the carved stone, the telltale footprint of a structure. Our modern gaze is so often fixed on the tangible, the mechanical, the quantifiable. We define advancement by the height of our buildings, the speed of our machines, the complexity of our microchips. We measure progress in terms of conquering nature, bending the physical world to our will. But what if that lens, sharp and precise as it is for what TUA value, blinds us to an entirely different kind of light? Imagine, for a moment, those same stars from the heartland, the vast, silent canvas above. Our ancestors, or those before them, perhaps they looked up not to plot trajectories for rockets, but to chart the inner cosmos, the intricate dance of spirit and consciousness. What if, tucked away in the deepest folds of time, there were civilizations whose technology wasn't forged from metal and fire, but cultivated from stillness and insight? Societies that understood the universe not as a collection of inert particles to be manipulated, but as a living, breathing symphony of energies, subtly interwoven. This isn't about fanciful magic, no. It's about a different kind of science, one perhaps forgotten or never fully embraced by the trajectory our own civilization took. A science rooted in intuition, in the profound understanding of connection, in the mastery of the self, rather than the subjugation of the external world. Consider the possibility of societies that prioritize the development of consciousness above all else. Their cities might not have been towering monuments of concrete, but perhaps intricate, living networks of human connection built on empathy and a deep, resonant wisdom. Their advancements wouldn't be found in complex machinery, but in the subtle manipulation of energy fields, in forms of healing we can barely conceive, in communication that transcends spoken language, rooted in shared frequencies of understanding. Think of it, a people whose greatest works of engineering were internal, whose pyramids weren't just tombs or observatories, but focal points for collective meditation, designed to amplify subtle energies, to attune human minds to grander cosmic rhythms. What if their power sources weren't fossil fuels or nuclear fission, but the harnessed intention of a unified populace, directed with profound wisdom towards a shared goal, perhaps not to conquer, but to harmonize, to grow food by understanding the Earth's subtle needs, rather than by force feeding it chemicals, to build structures not by brute labor, but by principles of resonant frequency and natural crystalline growth, to heal by aligning the body's own energetic. It's a melancholic thought, isn't it? To consider that our relentless pursuit of material progress might have led us down a path that bypasses these profound internal landscapes. We dig into the earth, looking for relics, for the discarded tools of a forgotten era. But what if the most precious artifacts were never tools at all? What if they were states of being, intricate weaves of thought, cascades of collective consciousness so refined that they left no trace in the geological record, save perhaps for an inexplicable calm emanating from certain ancient sites, a quiet resonance that whispers of something more? Perhaps such societies weren't driven by the relentless ticking clock of technological obsolescence. Perhaps they moved with the slow, deliberate rhythm of the cosmos, understanding that true progress isn't about speeding up, but about slowing down enough to truly perceive. Their discoveries might have been epiphanies of interconnectedness, realizations of the unity of all life, insights into the very fabric of existence that made conquest or competition seem utterly meaningless. A profound understanding that the external world is but a reflection of the internal, and that true power lies not in domination but in alignment. Why then would such societies disappear? This is where the sorrow truly deepens. Did they simply transcend, reaching a point of collective enlightenment where the physical realm became less necessary, melting into a purer form of existence that leaves no ruins for us to ponder? Did they understand cycles of rise and fall with such clarity that they simply receded when their time was done, knowing that the earth would rest and renewal would come in other forms? Or were they, in their profound spiritual advancement, simply vulnerable, unprepared for a younger, more aggressive civilization whose definition of power was purely physical, purely destructive? A clash between the whisper and the roar, where the roar, however transient, often seems to win in the short term. One might imagine a society so attuned to the subtle energies of the planet that they lived in perfect symbiosis, their presence leaving hardly a ripple on the natural world. Their homes woven into living trees, their sustenance gathered with reverence, their art a reflection of the inherent beauty around them, rather than an imposition upon it. They might have understood weather patterns not as phenomena to be conquered, but as living breaths of the earth to be understood and honored. Their wisdom might have been encoded not in books, but in the very consciousness of each successive generation, passed down through practices of mindfulness, contemplation, and energetic attunement, a lineage of understanding that could shatter with the loss of even a single. This perspective flips our understanding of what it means to be primitive or advanced on its head. Are we, with our skyscrapers and our satellites, truly advanced if our inner worlds are often fractured, our connections to each other tenuous, and our relationship with the planet often adversarial? Or were those forgotten peoples, whose physical traces are so scarce, the truly advanced ones, having mastered the most complex technology of all, the human spirit? The very idea that such inner mastery could be considered a form of technology challenges our ingrained definitions. But if technology is about applying knowledge for practical purposes, then what could be more practical than understanding the self, harmonizing with the universe, and living in peace? The remnants of their presence might not be in grand ruins, but in the lingering questions within us, in the deep-seated yearning for a different way, in the inexplicable feeling of peace that can sometimes descend upon an ancient, untouched landscape. It's a quiet ache, this thought, a recognition that perhaps we are searching for the wrong kind of ghost, in the wrong kind of graveyard, missing the subtle vibrations of a legacy that asks us to look inward, not outward, for the true measure of what it means to be, or to have been. And as the stars continue their silent procession above the heartland, the question hangs in the air, a wisp of smoke from a distant fire. What echoes of their inner world might still resonate just beneath the surface of our own tumultuous material dreams? The cool breath of evening sighs across the land, a familiar whisper carrying the scent of pine needles and damp earth through the quiet American night. Pine, The vast velvet canvas above, dusted with the glittering ash of a million distant fires, remains our most steadfast witness. We sit, or perhaps we merely dream of sitting, under this ancient gaze, pondering the echoes of those who came before. Not the history etched in stone monuments or dusty scrolls, but a deeper, almost geological past, where civilizations bloomed, and then, with an unbearable quietude, simply vanished. The query isn't if they existed, but why they are no longer here to watch the same stars wheel overhead. It is a question that carries the weight of a sorrowful elegy, a quiet lament for all that might have been lost. Perhaps the most visceral, the most easily grasped, of these somber possibilities is the slow, grinding inevitability of environmental collapse. Imagine a people, perhaps not so different from ourselves, who, through a gradual accumulation of choices, began to fray the very fabric of their world. Not a sudden cataclysm, but the insidious creep of imbalance. A forest stripped bare for fuel or construction, leaving topsoil vulnerable to the wind's hungry teeth. Rivers, once abundant arteries of life, choked with silt or diverted until they became mere trickles, then dust. Perhaps their climate, in a grand, indifferent cosmic cycle, shifted, bringing forth droughts that withered crops year after year, or relentless floods that swept away homes and hopes. We picture communities, once vibrant and self-sustaining, slowly shrinking, their laughter replaced by the gnawing anxieties of dwindling resources. The well-diggers descend deeper, the hunting parties venture further, the farmers watch the skies with an ever-increasing dread. It's not the drama of a volcanic eruption or a meteor strike, but the quiet despair of a landscape slowly turning its back on its inhabitants. A civilization, much like a plant in a parched garden, simply wilts, its once resilient roots losing their purchase in the desiccated earth. There is a profound sadness in this vision, a mirroring of our own anxieties, a silent cautionary tale whispered across millennia, that even the cleverest hands and the most ambitious minds are ultimately bound by the Earth's finite generosity. They might have been victims of their own success, their innovations and expansions inadvertently severing the delicate threads that connected them to their sustenance. The last generation, perhaps, watched as the desert encroached upon their cities, or the seas swallowed their coastal towns, not with a bang, but with the quiet, inexorable sigh of the turning tides. Then there is the chilling prospect of disease, a silent, invisible enemy that respects no borders, no social strata, no technological prowess. Picture a thriving metropolis, its markets bustling, its temples echoing with prayer or philosophical debate. Then a cough, a fever, a sudden, unexplained weakness that spreads from one household to another, from one village to the next, carried by trade routes and casual contact. In an age before modern medicine, before the understanding of microorganisms, such a scourge would have been utterly terrifying, an act of malevolent spirits or divine wrath. A pandemic, swift and merciless, could decimate a population, leaving behind not ruins of war, but empty homes, untended fields, and the haunting quiet of a world suddenly bereft of its people. The infrastructure would remain, perhaps, the grand buildings, the intricate aqueducts, but the hands that built them, the minds that designed them, would be gone. Would be gone. Imagine the last survivors, isolated and broken, watching their loved ones fade, their rituals of mourning collapsing under the sheer weight of death. The knowledge, the crafts, the oral traditions, everything that defined them as a civilization, would simply cease to be transmitted. A single pathogen, perhaps one for which they had no immunity, could have erased centuries of development, leaving only the wind to whistle through their silent, unremembered streets. This possibility carries a particularly poignant sorrow, for it speaks to the ultimate fragility of life, the notion that even the most advanced society is but a delicate biological construct, vulnerable to the unseen forces of nature. And what of the more internal wounds? The slow, agonizing unraveling of a society from within, a process more akin to a dream fading than a sudden nightmare. Perhaps it was a gradual societal breakdown, a loss of cohesion, where the intricate gears of governance and community simply jammed. Ideological divides might have deepened, trust eroded, until the bonds that held them together stretched and snapped. Civil strife, not necessarily in the form of grand battles, but 1,000 petty conflicts, resource squabbles, or moral decay, could have fragmented them into smaller, unsustainable groups. Imagine the fading grandeur of institutions, the abandonment of public works, the slow descent into a kind of existential apathy, where the will to build, to innovate, to even grow a united people, simply vanished. They might not have died out, but rather diffused, their advanced culture dissolving into smaller, less complex units, eventually losing all memory of their former glory. The descendants, perhaps, lived simple, agrarian lives in the shadow of their ancestors' incomprehensible achievements, unaware of the brilliance that once shaped their world. This is a subtle tragedy, a human one, speaking to the delicate balance required to maintain any complex society, and the ease with which that balance can be lost when the collective spirit falters. It suggests that a civilization can die not from external threats, but from a profound loss of self. But then, there is the most speculative, the most deeply philosophical whisper of all. What if the age chose to leave? Not driven by disaster, but by a conscious, collective decision to transition to another state of being. This idea, almost beyond the grasp of our current understanding, proposes a civilization that reached a pinnacle not of technological might, but of spiritual or intellectual evolution. Perhaps they mastered dimensions beyond our three, learned to shed their physical forms, or simply found a way to transcend the material world entirely. Imagine a people who, having achieved all they could in the physical realm, collectively decided to embark on a journey of consciousness, leaving behind their physical cities, their tools, their very bodies as abandoned shells. Their disappearance would not be a death, but a metamorphosis. The empty temples, the undisturbed artifacts, the sudden cessation of all activity would then be seen not as signs of collapse, but of a deliberate, peaceful departure. There is a strange, almost comforting beauty in this possibility, a sense that perhaps some civilizations don't end in tragedy, but in a sublime ascent, a quiet stepping off into the unknown. It hints at a purpose to life and civilization that extends beyond mere survival or dominance, suggesting a grander, more ethereal goal. This hypothesis adds a profound layer of mystery, a kind of hopeful melancholia, where the absence is not a void, but a portal to something we cannot yet comprehend. These are the quiet laments that drift through the night air, carried on the same currents that stir the leaves of the ancient oak. Each possibility, whether environmental despair, biological fragility, societal disillusionment, or conscious transcendence, offers a different flavor of melancholic reflection. They are not definitive answers, but rather open windows into the profound mystery of time and human existence. What did they know? And why did they disappear? The stars continue their silent watch, offering no reply, only the vast luminous silence that invites us to listen ever more closely to the whispers of the past, and to ponder with a gentle and lingering sadness the fleeting nature of all things under the sun and the stars. We are inheritors, yes, but also wanderers on the same path, looking up at the same heavens, carrying the same fragile hope and the same profound questions into the silent, waiting future. The hum of the summer evening deepens, a chorus of cicadas rising from the tall grasses, a sound as ancient as the earth itself. The stars, now fully emblazoned across the velvet canvas, seem to pulse with distant, unspoken secrets. And as you sit there, perhaps a gentle breeze rustling the leaves of a nearby oak, it's not merely that we've lost a few chapters of human history, it's that we've perhaps lost the very beginning, the foundational texts, the prologue that set the stage for everything we believe ourselves to be. Imagine for a moment the profound, almost unbearable tragedy of an entire species afflicted by a selective amnesia. We walk across landscapes sculpted by hands we cannot name, gaze upon structures defying our assumed timelines, and unearth artifacts that speak of technologies and philosophies we've only begun to reimagine. And yet, our collective memory remains stubbornly blank. We construct elaborate narratives of a linear ascent, a steady march from primeval simplicity to complex modernity, largely because we've forgotten the subtle, intricate dance of preceding eras. What does it mean to build a future on such a foundation of deliberate, or perhaps unavoidable, ignorance? The first casualty of this amnesia is, inevitably, knowledge itself. Not just facts and figures or blueprints for impossible machines, though those losses are immense. It's the deeper understanding, the nuanced wisdom that can only be cultivated over generations through repeated cycles of observation, experimentation, and contemplation. What did these forgotten peoples know about the intricate balance of our ecosystems, about sustainable living in true harmony with the land? Did they possess a medicine that understood the body and mind in ways we are only now clumsily rediscovering? Perhaps they navigated the subtle currents of the human psyche with a grace we have long since abandoned, or understood the rhythms of the cosmos with an intimacy that modern astronomy, for all its telescopes, cannot yet fully grasp. Think of the indigenous wisdom traditions that persist today, often marginalized, sometimes scorned, yet holding keys to ecological principles that Western science is scrambling to reclaim. Now, amplify that many times over, stretching back through epochs. What if entire libraries of such wisdom, not etched on papyrus or vellum, but woven into the very fabric of their societies, were simply washed away by time's relentless tide, leaving us to stumble through darkened ruin, seeking switches we don't even know exist. The thought carries a profound ache, a sense of opportunity forever lost, of pathways to flourishing that have overgrown into impassable wilderness. But beyond the tangible data, the deeper wound of amnesia lies in the realm of self-understanding. Who are we, truly, if we are not the pioneering generation, but merely the latest inheritors of a long and storied lineage? This question whispered against the vastness of the night sky. We pride ourselves on our progress, our innovation, our mastery over the natural world. Yet, if others before us achieved similar, or perhaps even greater feats, then fell, what does that say about the fragility of all our grand designs? It injects a sobering humility into our otherwise triumphant narrative, forcing us to confront the possibility that our current peak might merely be another undulation in a much longer, more cyclical journey. This forgotten past doesn't just challenge our perception of history, it profoundly shapes our present understanding of progress. We define progress in predominantly linear terms: faster, bigger, more complex. From the wheel to the combustion engine, from simple tools to artificial intelligence, our trajectory seems ever upward. But what if this linearity is a comforting illusion, born from the very gaps in our memory? What if progress isn't a straight line, but a spiral, returning to similar challenges, similar solutions, but with different tools and perspectives? Or a series of waves, cresting and breaking, each carrying valuable lessons that we, in our historical blindness, fail to recognize until we are again caught in the undertow. The amnesia allows us to believe our current solutions are novel, our current problems unprecedented. We grapple with climate change, social inequality, and existential angst, often feeling as though we are the first to confront such daunting challenges. Yet, if there were preceding civilizations, highly advanced and deeply connected to their environments, did they face similar tests? Did they find answers we have forgotten? Or did they make mistakes that we, lacking their cautionary tales, are doomed to repeat? This makes our current struggles feel infinitely lonelier, stripped of the ancestral guidance that might have softened the sharp edges of our present dilemmas. And then there is purpose. How does one truly articulate the purpose of humanity when a significant portion of its story is missing? Our current narratives often revolve around continuous growth, expansion, and the conquest of new frontiers, be they physical or intellectual. But what if the ultimate purpose, understood by those who came before, was something far more subtle, more rooted in balance, stewardship, or a deeper spiritual community? If our purpose is built upon an incomplete understanding of our past, how can we be sure it aligns with the deepest currents of human potential? We might be chasing ghosts, or constructing grand cathedrals on sand, without the ancient wisdom to show us where the true foundations lie. The melancholic truth is that our amnesia has left us somewhat adrift, searching for meaning in a world that feels both infinitely vast and strangely empty of profound echoes. We gaze at the stars and project our ambitions onto them, without ever quite knowing if those who watched them before us harbor different, perhaps more enduring, aspirations. The quiet ache of what's lost isn't just about specific inventions or forgotten texts. It's about the loss of a complete narrative of ourselves. It's the unsettling feeling that we are playing a game with rules we don't fully understand, on a board whose history we have only partially uncovered. As the night deepens further and the air grows cool, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant pine, the whisper becomes a plea. A plea to listen more closely to the silence, to the ancient stones, to the very earth beneath our feet. For within that silence, within the persistent mystery, lies not just the sadness of what's forgotten, but perhaps also the enduring echo of a wisdom that still waits to be heard. It is a subtle call, suggesting that our greatest act of progress might be to finally remember not just who we are, but who we have always been, in all our forgotten glory and our repeated failings. And perhaps only then can we truly begin to define a purpose worthy of our deep, mysterious history. We find ourselves once more under the vast, indifferent scroll of the night sky, a scene replaying itself through countless epochs, yet always feeling profoundly personal. The gentle symphony of crickets and the distant hoot of an owl are the only companions to our thoughts in this vast quiet, somewhere where the concrete ribbons of civilization fray into forgotten paths. This is where the human heart, stripped bare of its daily anxieties, turns instinctively upward, a silent question forming on lips unmoving. What is this insistent pull, this innate, almost desperate need to understand the echoes of time, to feel for the pulse of something that came before us? It is more than mere academic curiosity, certainly more than the dry pursuit of facts and dusty tomes. It is a primal whisper, woven into the very fabric of our being, an ancient algorithm in the human spirit that demands we search for our true origins. We build magnificent structures, craft intricate tools, tell stories around fires that stretch across generations, and in doing so, we carve our ephemeral presence into the world. But beneath this conscious act of creation lies an unconscious dread, a profound awareness of our own fleetingness, and with it, a yearning to connect with those who preceded us. We wanted to know if they too felt this strange cosmic loneliness, this brief flash of sentience in an otherwise silent universe. This quest for understanding our beginnings isn't a modern invention. It's etched into the very earliest cave paintings, in the meticulous burials of our distant ancestors, in the myths and legends passed down from elder to child. It's the child in the field, picking up a curiously shaped stone and wondering who last held it, what stories it might tell. It's the archaeologist, trowel in hand, painstakingly brushing away millennia of dust, not just to find artifacts, but to find old connections. They seek not just the what but the why, the how, and most poignantly the ho. Who were these people who gazed at the same stars? What were their joys, their sorrows, their profound understanding of a world we can only guess at? The concept of hidden histories, of civilizations swallowed by time and earth, stirs something uniquely poignant within us. It's a melancholic echo, a profound sense of loss for something we never knew, yet intuitively feel the absence of. Imagine the meticulous work of hands, the soaring ambition of minds, the intricate tapestry of a society, all reduced to a whisper in the wind, a faint anomaly on a geophysical survey, or perhaps a perplexing structure that defies our current understanding. These aren't grand, dramatic revelations waiting to explode onto the evening news. They are subtle tremors in the subsoil of our perceived reality, quiet suggestions that our narratives are incomplete, that the chapters we skipped might hold the most profound insights. There's a quiet dignity in this pursuit, a shared vulnerability in acknowledging how little we truly know. It's a comfort, strange as it may seem, to grapple with such profound mysteries. In the face of overwhelming geological time, of cosmic indifference, we humans reach out, not just to each other, but across the chasm of epochs. When we speak of a lost city buried deep beneath the Amazon, or of unexplained earthworks scattered across the American Midwest, mounds that rise from the plains like ancient breaths, hinting at geometries and cosmologies we can barely fathom, we are not just exchanging theories. We are sharing a wonder, a collective sigh of humility and awe. This shared wonder binds us. It transcends the individual search and becomes a collective human endeavor, a thread that connects us, not just to each other in the present, but to every human who has ever looked up at the stars and asked, why? There's a particular solace in this shared inquiry, a gentle acceptance that some questions may never have definitive answers. We may never uncover the complete story of a vanished people, their language lost to the winds, their technologies crumbled to dust, their wisdom diffused into the very earth. And yet, the act of seeking, the quiet contemplation of their potential existence, the imaginative reconstruction of their world provides a unique kind of comfort. It's a comfort born of empathy, a recognition that the human experience, across all time, is bound by common threads: the desire for meaning, the forging of community, the struggle against the inevitable passage of time. When we ponder these lost civilizations, we are, in a way, communing with them. We acknowledge their existence, even if only in the realm of hypothesis and speculation. We honor their silent departure by remembering that they might have been. And in doing so, we confront our own mortality, our own potential to one day become one of history's whispers. The vastness of the American landscape, from the ancient forests of the Appalachians to the sun-baked deserts of the Southwest, offers a profound stage for these contemplations. The land itself holds secrets, not just in its geological formations, but in the subtle scars of human presence long faded. The geometric earthworks of Ohio, the Pueblo cities carved into cliffsides in New Mexico, the scattered arrowheads found in a freshly plowed field. These are not just archaeological sites. They are invitations to reflection, tangible points where the present brushes against the incomprehensible depth of the past. They remind us that this land, which we now call our own, has cradled countless stories, some known, many forever lost. To embrace this unknown, to find solace in the very act of questioning, is perhaps the most profound form of understanding. It's an acceptance of the vastness of time and the humility of our place within it. There's a quiet strength in admitting that the narrative of human civilization is far grander, far more intricate, and far more mysterious than we currently grasp. And as the night deepens, and the stars grow brighter, twinkling down on this quiet corner of America, the gentle hum of our shared wonder becomes a lullaby, a soft whisper that reminds us, we are seekers, we are dreamers, and in our collective quest for the quiet dignity of this human drive, to peer into the abyss of time and find connection, remains ever persistent, ever profound. And so, we return to the quiet, to the heart of it all. Imagine, once more, that summer evening, the low thrum of cicadas, a distant symphony beneath the vast unfurling tapestry of the night sky. The air, cool now, carries the ghost of honeysuckle and the rich, dark scent of tilled earth. The stars, those ancient, patient witnesses, seem to pulse with an even deeper light, no longer just distant suns, but perhaps the very eyes of forgotten epochs. We began with a whispered question, a tremor beneath the surface of the familiar, and it's there, in that quiet tremor, that our journey gently concludes. We have wandered through shadows, not seeking proof in grand, undeniable monuments, but in the persistent, almost plaintive echoes that ripple across deep time. We've looked at the curious lines etched into landscapes that defy known timelines, the impossible precision of ancient stonework, the unexpected echoes in myth and folklore that seem to speak of a shared, distant memory. These aren't the stuff of sensational headlines, but rather the quiet, insistent questions that, once heard, refuse to be silenced. They are the subtle discrepancies, the anomalies that ask us to widen our gaze, to soften the edges of our historical search. What if, in our relentless pursuit of progress, of building ever higher, ever faster, we've forgotten a fundamental rhythm? The possibility, however faint, of previous advanced civilizations, not necessarily superior, but simply different, forces us to confront a profound truth. Perhaps our narrative of linear advancement, from crude tools to silicon chips, is but, perhaps, beneath the layers of soil and sediment, beneath the very foundations of what we call modern, lie the dust and dreams of countless others who, like us, looked up at these same stars and felt the same cosmic pull. This notion isn't meant to diminish our own achievements, but rather to imbue them with a deeper, more melancholic significance. It suggests a cyclical nature to existence, a grand, slow breath of the planet itself, exhaling civilizations into being and then gently drawing them back into its bosom. Imagine the countless dawns and dusks these lands have seen, the forests that grew and receded, the rivers that carved their paths, while human societies, in their varied forms, rose, flourished, and for reasons lost to us, faded. What caused their disappearance? The answers, if they exist, are likely as complex and multifaceted as the human spirit itself. Was it a slow, creeping environmental degradation, a turning away from the land that sustained them? Did their own technological advancements, perhaps, lead them down paths that ultimately proved unsustainable, creating imbalances they could not correct? Or was it something far simpler, yet no less profound? A slow erosion of spirit, a forgotten wisdom, a loss of connection to the very essence of what made them thrive. The echoes seem to whisper of both external pressures and internal frailties, a testament to the fragile dance between humanity and the world it inhabits. There is a humility that settles upon us when we consider these silent possibilities. The arrogance of assuming ourselves to be the AIA first, the pinnacle of consciousness on this ancient planet, begins to feel a little hollow. Instead, we become inheritors, standing on foundations we barely perceive, breathing air that has passed through countless lungs. This perspective doesn't offer easy answers, but it offers something far more valuable, a challenge to our perception of time, of progress, and of our place within the vast indifferent march of geological ages. And this, perhaps, is the most profound lesson embedded in these ancient mysteries, the wisdom of remembering. Not just remembering facts or dates, but remembering a way of being. Oh, wow. If civilizations have risen and fallen before, if they have grappled with the same fundamental questions of survival, meaning, and purpose, then their very silence becomes a potent teacher. It urges us to look inward, to examine the trajectory of our own civilization with a critical, yet compassionate eye. What are why gelling that will endure? What wisdom are we passing on, and what vital lessons are we forgetting? In our quest for speed and efficiency, have we inadvertently severed connections that were once considered sacred? Do we truly listen to the land, to the subtle warnings it offers? Do we cherish the ephemeral, the beautiful, the quiet interconnectedness of all things, or are we too consumed by the tangible, the immediate, the fleeting? The ancient ones, in their silent departure, leave us with a gift, a mirror held up to our own uncertain future. They remind us that impermanence is the only constant, and that even the grandest empires eventually return to dust. But within this melancholic truth lies a powerful impetus for change. If we are indeed part of a grand, cyclical unfolding, then we have the opportunity, perhaps even the responsibility, to learn from the shadows that precede us. To remember the past in this context is not to pine for a golden age or to uncover some lost technology that will miraculously solve our problem. It is to cultivate a deeper awareness of the forces that shape civilizations, the delicate balance of ecological health, the profound importance of community, the subtle dangers of unchecked ambition, the enduring power of empathy and shared purpose. It is to understand that the true measure of a civilization might not be its towering structures, but its capacity for wisdom, its ability to live in harmony, and its profound respect for the delicate web of life. So, as the night deepens and the stars blaze with an ancient fire, the lingering sense is not one of fear, but of awe. Awe at the sheer scale of time, at the resilience of life, and at the enduring mystery of consciousness itself. The whispers from deep time continue, not as a warning of inevitable doom, but as a gentle invitation to pause, to listen, and to reflect. What did they know? Why did they disappear? These questions remain, hanging in the cool night air, like the scent of distant wood smoke. But perhaps the answers are not meant to be found in dusty scrolls or unearthed ruins. Perhaps they lie within us, in our capacity for introspection, for humility, for a renewed sense of wonder. The challenge is not merely to uncover their existence, but to understand what their potential existence means for ours. To remember the past not as a definitive history, but as a vast living library of possibilities, so that we might, with a little more wisdom and a little more grace, navigate our own uncertain future under these same eternal stars. The conversation, it seems, has only just begun.